Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I'm going to be talking about what Paizo should do with Pathfinder 2e. So this is not speculation on what they're going to do. This is more what should they do with Pathfinder 2e. Okay, all right. So you have Paizo. They've acknowledged that their game's super old, and the Pathfinder 1e is 10 years old, and they're really struggling because Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition has come out. So what do they do with this? What are the opportunities with Pathfinder 2e, and what should Paizo do? Okay, so I think there's some lessons that have been learned from recent editions. And one of the biggest ones is you have to remember the lessons from 4th edition, because I think Paizo is in a position to make the same mistakes that actually caused them to succeed with Paizo 1. They could absolutely make that same mistake and then have a situation where they're in the exact same situation that Wizards of the Coast was in 4e. So here's the biggest lesson that was learned from Pathfinder 4e. Do not do anything to make your game look like a video game. A lot of tabletop role players go, oh, look at all those cool people over in the video game world. We should make our game like a video game. And then we'll get all those video gamers to come over here and play. Well, you don't want to do that, and the reason why is, tabletop role-playing games have some of the smartest fans in the world. They're generally literate, they're generally very savvy, and the same cannot be said for the video game community, right? It's so wide and so broad that, not the smartest, most literate people in the world are attracted to video games. The mass market is attracted to video games, right? So you don't want to pursue a market that really doesn't want your product. And that's exactly what happened with 4th edition. It alienated the smart, literate people that play tabletop role-playing games, and it found really no purchase with the mass market that video games have. So they absolutely need to avoid doing anything to make Pathfinder 2e look like a video game. And Paizo needs to be very, very careful of this, because they have a lot of goodwill toward video games, because they tried to make a Pathfinder MMO, which for all, from what I've seen, looks to be a commercial failure. I've never met anyone in my life who plays the Pathfinder MMO, and I'm within the tabletop role-playing game community. So, the Venn diagram there should have been fairly large, and it was not. It didn't work out. So they need to be very, very careful of that. Okay, so what should the Pathfinder 2e game do? Well, one, it should not be a new iteration. It needs to swing for the fences, and it needs to iterate the form of the tabletop role-playing game itself, right? Now, the obvious things are make the tabletop role-playing game run in the time of a movie. This should absolutely be one of the goals of Pathfinder 2e. And that's another thing. I think the Pathfinder Paizo should be ready to lose its core fans. Absolutely lose its core fans. And the reason why is their game is not relevant anymore, in my opinion. Dungeons & Dragons has come back, kicked them out of the lawn, and so the people who are playing Pathfinder 1e were people who were happy with Pathfinder 3.5, right? Well, that market is well over 10 years old. Those people, there's not much of them left, right? Who's really that into Pathfinder 3.5? You don't want to pursue that market, right? So in my opinion, what you want to do is you want to get smart, savvy people who are not playing tabletop role-playing games. And the way you can do that is you can deliver a tabletop role-playing game that has absolutely no ability to be played for a 4-hour game block that was invented in the 1980s, and has the ability to be played an entire adventure that plays within 90 minutes, the standard length of an American movie. That means you have to change everything. You have to change the combat. You have to change how the player characters are structured, all of that. And so what I would do is I would make it so that all the rules of the entire game can fit into 15 pages, right? And then what I would do is I would steal a brilliant idea from Tiny Dungeon 2e, and use micro settings, right? And so allow there to be multiple settings that are available, ready to be played right within the core rulebook. That's another thing. I would make the core rulebook of Pathfinder 2e less than 100 pages long. Okay, rules in 15 pages, probably 20 pages of player character options, and I would do ancestries, which is the new term for race, and I would do classes. I would maybe 15 pages for each of those. 15 pages for ancestry, maybe 30 pages for class options, and then I would do maybe 10 pages for a bestiary, and I would use the rest of those pages for these micro settings, right? So you have a game that runs in 90 minutes. You can do an entire adventure within 90 minutes, and then you have a game that's less than 99 pages long, right? And this is a massive break from everything they're currently doing. But another reason why I would go down this road is from my vantage, from what I see, I do not believe Starfinder was successful. The one thing it was successful in doing is it is being sold in Barnes and Nobles, which that's impressive, right? You got a 500-page rule book. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. It's really cool. But it gets the same market that Pathfinder gets. And it really, I don't think it really brings anybody new to the hobby. It doesn't innovate the form in any single way, right? Another thing I would do is make a way for people to participate in a tabletop role-playing game without being a player and without being a game master. Okay. Now, I'm actually currently, of course, I'm working on my own tabletop role-playing game, and this is something that I have within my tabletop role-playing game. I'm not going to say how I do it until I do my release, but I do think that Paizo should be doing this. So right now, every tabletop game in the world has a game master, and it has players, and it has nothing else for the glamour, okay? So let's say there's a girl, she's really excited about Pathfinder, or Pathfinder 1e, and her boyfriend gets interested in her, but he's not actually interested in the game, and then he gets attached to her as a player, and he comes in as a player, right? This happens constantly. It is very, very common in tabletop role-playing games. I call them the glommer, the person who is there for another person and not for the game. And I think that we need a space for them to be logically at the table, to have them do something, but not actually take a player seat. And there's a whole lot of reasons for this. It's one of the biggest problems in the game, and I think they have the opportunity to solve it, right? Which I think is really, really unique and special, and I think they could do it. That's the other thing is, what problems of tabletop role-playing games can Pathfinder 2e solve? And in a unique and special way. And I think that's one of the things is that we really want to do, is we want to figure this out, right? And so that's what I would do with Pathfinder. That's what I think Paizo should do with Pathfinder 2e. I will tell you right now, I'm not sure they're going to do any of those things, and I hope they don't do what they did with Starfinder, which is more of the same. That's to me is one other thing they absolutely cannot do. They cannot do more of the same. It's my take. Take care.